Yeah, my name's Richard Tommy Campion. Everyone calls me Tommy. No one else knows me as Richard except myself. At the moment I'm 68 and I live on the Gold Coast. I grew up in Lismore in New South Wales in a home actually. I've spent 14 years living in a children's home. No mum and dad, dumped off, put there, and that's what happened. I moved to the coast probably about 35 years ago. And many times I was going to leave, but I couldn't. I used to tell my daughter, one day your father will have to go. And that was when she was 16. I still didn't go. I couldn't go, I could not leave her. When she was 18, I said, darling, one day your father's got to leave here to better his life. I stayed. When she turned 21, I said, well, your father's going to go one day, but he's still here. Well, I feel that, firstly, that leaving, I knew I could do better than the Northern Star, so I actually applied for a job at the Courier Mail. And when I arrived the first time, they gave me a Nikon. It was a Nikomat and a couple of lenses I'd never used before. And within about 3 or 4 hours of being there, I was sent out on a job. And I had to cover some people who were swimming, and I'd never used a wide angle lens before actually, back in those days, and it was a frightening situation to see someone diving off the blocks into the camera, and I thought, wow, this is going to be great, but it had been done so many times before, but they loved it so much they used it on the front page. So that was the Nikon, the first time I've used them, and I've used them ever since. So in the 60s I was at the Northern Star, and my ambition at that time was to work for the Queensland newspapers, which was the Courier Mail, because of the broadsheet. I used to like those huge photographs, and it was probably in the 70s, but I ended up going to Townsville and working for a paper up there for a while, wondering what was going to come of my life, what was I doing up there, and finally I was offered a job, you know, in the late 70s at the Courier Mail. So I hastily went to that and I started from there, and after a couple of years, I imagine, I thought it was the most boring paper I'd ever been to in my life, and I'd only been to a few. And I was asked, I had an interview for the Australian in a pub, and we had a few beers and we actually spoke about the Australian and about myself, and then they said, we'll let you know. So a few days later, I gave notice at the Courier Mail, and a month later I'm at the Australian, and loved it. And off I went. It was just wonderful. Trips away, beautiful people, lots of time to think and lots of time to stay on a job. It was very exciting. I got sick and tired of the newspaper industry, so I left. But I actually came back and I started working for the Sunday Sun, which was a huge paper. It used to be called the Sunday Truth. And that was huge. And I loved that so much. But I still thought it was a pain in the arse. I didn't like the way things were running, so I left again and went and picked beans. And then I came back again and started. And then I left again, and then they started up a bureau, a News Limited bureau on the Gold Coast. And they asked me would I like to sort of go there and work, not to be the boss, but just to be at work. And I decided that'd be the greatest thing. So they built the office and they built the dark room. So Gold Coast became one of the great cities of Australia, you know, with the beaches. There was a lot of crime, there was a lot of stories, there were a lot of deaths, there was a lot of things happening, so it was a sort of a full-time job, and you know, you really cut your teeth there. You had to be available 24 hours a day, and I was. Most of the time I was drunk when I went out in jobs, but that's part of the business, isn't it? So I sort of stayed there until the paper closed down about 5 years later. So I was out of work then, and then I started doing casual work for the Courier Mail back there again, filling in for people when they went on holidays and etc., and basically just freelanced and just had a great time. So I hadn't done much. I'd been around, I had a checkered career, but as far as covering sort of huge events all around the world, no, I didn't do all that, but I managed to score a lot of good jobs that you could get your teeth into. So basically, I just stayed around and enjoyed. I done a lot of stuff for the Telegraph. I done a lot of stuff for Page 3 Girls for the Mirror. All that sort of stuff. A lot of models, a lot of nudes, test shots for Penthouse and Playboy, and all that stuff. You know, whatever. Chase fire brigades, and ambulance, and police cars. Yeah, some of the big stories of my career. Probably not really exciting, but you know, there was one in particular. I imagine I was at SeaWorld once and just trying to set up some sort of a photograph, and someone said, "Quick, Tommy, you better get over to the pond here. There's a dolphin being born in captivity. Just probably a very rare situation anywhere." I said, "Yeah, I'll just finish this up over there." But I went over there and I could not believe this dolphin tearing around the pool, and had half a little dolphin coming out of it. It's like a little torpedo. The head was in, the tail was out. So because I was very excited about this. This was it. This was the big one. Where do you photograph it though? It was under the water next to me, to over there, and it'll be up here, then it'll be up there, and he didn't know where it was going to come out. And the bloke sort of guided me. He said, "Where that ripple is, righto, now hit it." And up she goes. And I thought, wow, I've got this little dolphin. And I kept on following it, and I got used to it. I ended up taking about 10 or 12 frames. And the baby was actually born under the water. Even though I had those other ones of it leaping in the air, was trying to push it out. And you know, that split second that baby was born, it come up out of the water and started swimming next to the mother. And they just kept on going around and around in a circle. The whole situation. Back in those days, you know, you take your film out, right? You used to wind your film on, you take it out, and I just had a habit of always keeping that in my hand. It always stayed there for some reason while I had this other one. I don't know why I didn't put it in my pocket. But on that particular day, it dropped into the water, this roll of film that I'd taken of this baby being born. It dropped into the water, and another dolphin came up and started bloody playing with it. And I thought, oh, it's going to eat it. You know, it's going to die, and there goes me pictures. But the diver got it out, and they put it in a bucket of water. And I took it back to work, and I processed it up and down the tank, and in the tank there, and it was perfect. No worries whatsoever. So those pictures sort of went around the world, and everyone loved them, and I was very excited about the whole sort of situation. And so that was good. There was another situation where there was a young child kidnapped. A young girl was kidnapped on the Gold Coast, and of course it was a manhunt looking for the kidnappers. There were 3 blokes involved. They asked for $1 million ransom, which was later lowered to $500,000 into $250,000. However, the chase were on. There's choppers in the sky. Any media from most areas in Brisbane and beyond Brisbane and anywhere, and blokes from Sydney come up to the Gold Coast. So our office at the Sun used to be Murdoch's office, and it used to be sort of in the middle of Surfers Paradise. So we sat there with the police radio, and we heard a call to say there's been a sighting. So by the time we got the car started, you'd see half a dozen police cars goes past, and we couldn't get out on the road. There was the fire brigade going past, and then all these media's going past, and there's sirens going, people are waving their arms, and I thought, oh, we are doomed. We're never going to get out. We're going to miss it. So off we went, heading down the road there. It was very exciting. The heart is thumping. And the journalist, Scott McKenzie, with me, said, oh, look, there's the dog squad. We'll follow it. I said, no, don't follow the dog squad. He said, I'm following the dog squad. So off he goes round the corner. And just as we got round the corner, just up on the beachfront, the car comes to a halt, cuts off a car. I jumps out of the car. I was probably about 10 feet away. I grabbed the camera and put it up, and I started shaking, and I was holding my breath, and I started knocking off these shots of the bloke. He had the gun pointed at the kidnapper. Put your hands up, get down on the ground, don't make a move, I'll shoot. And I'm shooting, and I'm thinking, I hope he knows that I'm over here. I'm just, you know, and which he did, because I found out later that he had an idea. So they grabbed this bloke and they took him round the side of the car and they put a gun at his head and they sort of half stripped him off. But we were the only newspaper there. No TV, no one, but when they actually had him and picked him up from the ground, everyone else turned up. So we got a real scoop there. That was quite amazing to have that. It was, it was pretty heartbreaking to see what happened. But having those photographs is just an amazing feeling that you process it and then you go and buy a big carton of beer and you celebrate. Beautiful. You soon pick up on those sort of things, that this bloke has just put out a hit record or he's just grown a large cabbage. So you sort of know, I think it's pretty basic, but sometimes you just can't get the grasp of it. So you tend to miss out on that special photograph, It is a tricky question, that one. But basically, when you've been in newspapers for a long time, and you know what's going on, basically you get advice from the journalists if you listen, and you'll have to push a bit sometimes to get that picture you want, to get them to do something different. But basically, no, it's all simple, all too easy. I'm very tired. I was sitting there was an interview, a press conference with Joe Cocker, the singer. And after, I used to always like to get to know these blokes, and most of the time I'd say, my mum loves you, she's such a big fan, is there any chance of having a photograph taken with her? She's going to love this, she'll frame it. And of course there was no worry, so when we'd done all that, I sat down with another photographer called Richard Webb. We sat at the bar and ordered 3 schooners. So they went down quick, so we, having a chat with Joe. He was a normal sort of a bloke. He sat in the middle, with 2 big chairs and the bar stools. More schooners. There's other blokes coming in, patting him on the shoulder, and his manager come over and someone else come over and say, righto Joe, and he's saying, no, it's okay. And we got on really nice. Anyway, probably after about 6 or 8 schooners or something like that, which was beginning to taste really nice, and remember Joe puts his foot up, just up in the bar like that a little bit, and he just wanted to lean back and stretch the legs, and he's had his beer in his hand, and all of a sudden he started to topple, but he managed to put the beer on the counter, and he fell back on this big high stool, and Webby's on one side, I'm on this side. Just before he's hit the ground, we managed to grab the chair and we lifted him up. And as soon as he got to the top and he put the chair down and he balanced, he's picked up that schooner and threw it down his throat. What a scream. It was all over in a few seconds, but it was very clever, and that was pretty funny. I remember another time with Ronnie Corbett. He used to come to Australia a bit, and the first time I met him I was highly amused at his antics. And we had a bit of a yarn, and I asked him would he mind being in a photograph with me for my mother, which was okay. And then we ended up going out in the tennis court, and he was using one of those huge, big, giant rackets, and I was just using an ordinary one. Now he's only a tiny little fella, R.I.P. Passed away the other day, and we had a photograph taken. And he said that time, hey, you come up with all these silly ideas all the time. He said, that other photograph you've done, that's really silly, but it's different, it's a good idea. So I think about 2 years later he turned up, and I was sitting in the audience with the media, and he says, there's that bloke that asked me to do all these silly things down the back there. And on that day, just as a joke, I had a t-shirt printed that says, Tommy Campion, President of the Ronnie Corbett Fan Club, which he thought it was a scream, so we got some photographs done. And I think that day I got him sort of sitting in a bar, on top of a bar, with his legs crossed with all these little drinks around him. So, you meet all these wonderful people, and most of the time they'll do anything you like. But there was a time when Don McLean, the singer, I do remember, who wasn't very funny. In fact, he was very angry. And when I asked him to do a picture, he said it was ridiculous and he didn't want to do that. And I said, well, why not? It's publicity, you must do this. I don't have to do anything. I said, well, I just want to photograph. All I want you to do is take your shoes off. I mean, it's not funny, but this man was just a bloody he was just a bloody oddball, that's all as far as I'm concerned. I know he had some wonderful songs, but I didn't want to know about him after that, but they used it on the front page, I think. Yeah, there was a huge stuff up. I won't say I caused it, but the situation was I was sent up to Hamilton Island to photograph the opening, and there was Peter Allen was up there on the stage singing and doing all his little dancing, and down below in the crowd was one of the Beatles, George Harrison, who happened to have a unit on Hamilton Island, which was owned by Keith Williams at the time then. And my gig there was to photograph George and whatever happened, and of course you got everything else that happened, and each time I wanted to do a shot of George, I had problems because people kept on blocking me. So I'd move across the room and someone would block me doing these photographs. So at that stage I thought, what are these fools doing? Just want to photograph, it's all pretty easy. We had a darkroom assistant come up with us too. He bring the kit up, he had it all set up, and he was waiting at the door for my photographs, and I thought, I've got to get this picture, we got deadlines here. So I went to a bloke called Russ Hinds, who was a government minister, the minister for everything, and I said to Russ, who was always gruff, I said, mate, I need this photograph of yourself, George Harrison and Joby Peterson and Keith Williams and this and that, and I'm having a bit of trouble, can you organise it? He said, leave it to me. Next minute, everyone's together. I moved them in tight. I had the power then, see. They were in tight. I moved people back. George was okay, and they got in close together, and I shot the guts out of it. Close-ups and knocked off pictures of George by himself and tried to stir him up so you get personality. Finish that, hand the film, a couple of rolls of film to the young bloke. He disappears. About 2 hours later he comes back and I'm looking around and he's standing at the door beckoning me over, and I said, what's going on? How'd they go? I said, I should be in the paper by now. And he said, well, we got no photos. I said, what do you mean no photos? He said, I processed the whole lot in water. The chemicals were marked wrong, and the bottle was just water. I said, how do you know? He said, there was nothing on the film. I said, you've got to be joking. So it was a matter of trying to organise George again, but you know, it's getting 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I have still got nothing, so I went to bed. But the next morning I got up and having breakfast, and the bloke said, Tommy, where were you last night? I said, I went to bed, I was tired. He said, we couldn't find it. George Harrison at sunset was sitting on the beach singing songs. And another thing I remember, which was a stuff up for me actually, was I was sent to Hamilton Island again for what they call race week, which is a big week. It's, you know, you get your accommodation, you have your nice meals, and you meet some lovely people, and you have all this boat racing, which I don't really like, but it's a job. And then you do your pictures for the day, and then you put them on the wire and send them back. Well, the night before I was going, there was thunder and lightning, and it was windy, and I was petrified. I had a huge fear of planes. I'm just starting to come good now with the help of a Valium. But I had a huge fear of flying, so I knew David Sproul, a photographer. He was on holidays, and I asked the boss, could I get someone else to do it, because I was petrified. So seeing David was on holidays, I rang David up and he said, yeah, I'd love to go, because when he gets up through the lightning and the storm, it's smooth sailing. So what happened, he stays up there, he does the job. The last day, I'm at home on the Gold Coast, just hanging. The last day, on the Saturday he was leaving, the main office, the big main office, the foyer, beautiful thatched roof, the whole caught fire and the whole thing burnt down right next to the dolphin pool. So all these chairs were thrown in the pool, there's dolphins leaping around, there's flames as high as a high rise, and David Sproul, who's there, taking all these pictures. And I believe he won an award for all this with his place going up there, and I thought, half my luck. I mean, that's a real stuff up for me, I can tell you now. But that's the way it is. Most meaningful images, photographs or jobs, I imagine, you know, there are a lot. But there is one that sticks in my mind, actually, that I got emotional then with that, is that there was this young girl that I had to photograph with her family who was had kidney problems and she didn't expect to be living too long. And she was a sweet little child. I ended up turning up there and then listened to the story, and I remember it still hurts. I remember photographing her at a piano. She said, Mum said, play a tune for Tommy, and she sat at the piano in this lovely little lace dress, and she sat there, and there was a beautiful light coming through the window, and there was silky curtains hanging down, and I thought, oh dear, oh, that's beautiful, that picture there. I remember photographing that picture, and I used it pretty big in the paper, and I also remember that we become really, really good friends, the family. I become close to them, and I felt involved in it, and I tried to do things, but of course it was all impossible. And subsequently, the little child, this dear little child, sort of was a month or so later passed away from a kidney disease, and that has stuck in my mind for the last 25, 30 years. You know, and that's very, very sad. Oh, my role in society it wasn't just a job. I was doing something very, very important. I was recording history. No matter, Bill Smith with his large cabbage or zucchini, or the Queen, I was just recording history, and that's probably the most exciting thing about it. And I'm still doing it to this day. But, you know, it was a job. And really, you're not, you are achieving a lot in your own eyes, but as far as in the public's eyes, it's just a photo. And, you know, if the Queen was jumping over a hurdle, well, it was no big deal to them, but to yourself it is. And I think that just recording that moment in time, the history of Australia. And that's quite an achievement to be able to do that and have the chance to do that, to be able to walk in front of people, to be able to go through police lines, be able to be up front to shoot something that important. And it's just a matter of being there and recording history, and that's how I see it. I think I don't know, I admired everyone. I imagine, let's put it this way, any person I work with, I admired, who was able to achieve and go out and take photographs, but I can't think of anyone that's really well known in this world today or back all those ages ago when I started that I had really admired. I sort of didn't know much myself, you know. I was a sort of a point and shoot type person, and then later on a camera company got a camera out called Point and Shoot, and I suppose that it was a matter of me just learning myself and without thinking of anyone else. I like their style or anything. It was just Tommy, just doing what he had to do. Well, when I was a young fellow, the first camera, when I walked in the door at the Northern Star, well, here it is here now. It's not the same camera, but this is what I used here. This is what I used to use to do the headshots. I used to do the check presentations, and I used to walk around with doing the football. I used to run up the sideline like a startled gazelle, up and down, photographing, but because of the negative 4x5 was so big, you could take anything out of that negative because it was so big, and the enlarger was good, and there was good chemicals and everything was good. But pictures, I used to get some great pictures of the footy there, nothing really exciting like today, but some bloke wrote a letter to the editor saying the speed and agility that Tommy Campion has when he's running up the sideline, he should be playing on the wing. So that was a sort of the camera, and it was just amazing, you know. I still love him. And then I went to started using Mamiya, the Twinlings, the 2.25 square. That was good. You had to know all the exposures then, and I don't think at any stage, I might have had an exposure meter, I can't remember, probably, but you knew your exposures, and gradually, it was actually when I sort of left the Northern Star that the Nikons were sort of becoming very popular. And I tried to get those in before I left, but that didn't happen, but subsequently it did. And then it started off with the Nikon, the Nikomat, as I said before, when I worked at the Courier Mail, their rubbish paper. But the Courier Mail, and it went on. So what you used to in those days was your Nikon, so I just kept doing that, and I kept on using Nikon, and wherever I could buy one, and that's all I've ever used, and this is one I use now. It's I've got 3 of these. There's the D7000, I've got one D5000, and I got 150 to 600 mil lens. This lens here, which is wonderful, is an 18 to 300. It's powerful, it's crisp, it's clear, and there's my portrait there. And then I can look over there and do that shot of the house on fire 300 yards away. So basically I stuck with Nikon because I like them, and I don't think I've ever taken a picture with a Canon or any other camera really. I don't wish for much. I'm happy with my life, but I do wish they had digital cameras when I was a press photographer, I can tell you that. How easy would that have been? Instead of shooting your 20 rolls of film, you know, there's that little card there, beautiful. But that's the way it is, and I probably worked as a newspaper photographer. You know, I was there for over 40 years, and I imagine that was the best time to be involved in newspaper work, back in my time in the 60s, the 70s and the 80s. I feel was the greatest time ever. Everyone loved each other. Everyone on papers got on together. Now, what's going on? There's none left. They're going. There's arguments, there's fights, it's a battle. Future in newspapers, well, all I can do is hope that there is. There's still a lot of papers out there. I know a lot of people have been sacked, but there's nothing better in the whole world, and I can't convince anyone than to sit back at the breakfast table or having coffee somewhere out, reading a newspaper. And I just sincerely hope that they keep newspapers going, and I cannot predict anything, but it is a lot of sadness that a lot of these papers are closing down. A hell of a lot of sadness that they put bloody photographers off. They're the one, not the journalists. They don't do the art, the photographers do. They do these photographs. They do that headshot that means more so much than describing this bloke. And here we are, those people are out of work that should be working. So who knows, that might happen again. It was like when the movie started and then TV come in, and it all parted. Now everyone goes to TV now, but movies are making a big comeback, and it's quite amazing. So who knows what will happen. And if a young bloke is starting off, male or female or whatever, the main thing is, if you're keen, you've got to be keen. There's no good going in there half-heartedly. And I think if you go in half-heartedly, you know, you can weed the sheep from the goats really easy. You either got it or you haven't. And if you haven't got it, you don't stay in as long as I have been in it, and a lot of other me mates. But basically, I always tell them to look behind them, walk the grid. You've got to walk the grid. You just can't see that photograph and just take that picture. You can't do that. You've got to walk the grid. Then you lift it up, you make sure everything is checked, and you stand there and you go, there you go, that's in there. Got that picture. We'll stick that one in the front page, or stick it in the family album. And that's what it's all about. And here we go again, smile! That's it, beautiful! I think I'll just check that. Oh, no, I don't like that. Throw that away. Go, smile, that's it. Here we go. Put the fire out. There go the fire brigade. There goes the police. That's a good. Camera is very important, but it's mainly the bloke behind the camera. But just buy a basic camera, a good 35mm, and the lens is one of the most important situations. I find, you know, you can either have your fixed lenses, your 50mm, or your wide angle lens where you can sort of get someone in focus at the front, but also the whole world behind you will be in focus too, or whatever. It depends on your depth of field. Or you can just get a wide angle lens and a tele lens built in, which is one that I use and 90% of the time, which is an 18 to 300 lens, which means I can do the nice tight beautiful close-ups of people's eyes. It shows all the wrinkles. It's still reasonably sharp. You lose a bit with a long lens, and then well, finish that, and there might be some people walking down the street I'd like to photograph too with 10 dogs on their shoulders or something. I can just use the 300, as simple as that. It's one pull in one foul sweep and you've covered the lot. So in one lens you can get anything you'd like. Lighting to me is the most wonderful, exciting part of photography, and I would say 4 to 5 times a week I'm out of bed about 4 o'clock or 4:30 and I'm ready to go out and hit the streets or hit the beaches. That first light is important. You get the beautiful shadows, the long soft shadows, you get the detail, you get the atmosphere, you get the gloss and the glow and the shiny effect on the water, you get the moles of the clouds, the whole situation. And to me, light makes the photograph. You can take a picture at 12 o'clock in the day and it doesn't matter how good it is, how much the action's in it, it's going to be a basic picture, but you get it the right light afternoon or morning. That is the light that really excites me more than anything else in the whole world, except a beautiful woman or a nice cold beer. But light, we all strive for the light, and that's what makes all the most beautiful and most famous photographs ever. Yeah, I found some passion there. I went through a lot of depression there at one stage there with it's tricky. I went through a lot of depression with being abused in a home. And when I was actually sacked from one of Murdoch's papers for something that had happened, I didn't pick up a camera for a couple of years, but even when I turned 60, a lot of my friends put in some money and they bought a camera and they gave it to me, and I was very excited. When I sat home there, I put it in a box. The box it was in, I sat it beside me and it sat there for nearly 2 years. And my flatmate said, "Don't you think it's about time?" I said, No. But I pulled it out one day, a digital. I had a look at it, read the book, threw the book away, took a photo of the TV, and then I took a photo of the fan, and I had a look. I see this wonder. It was beautiful. Then I took a photo of a cloud going over, and I thought, wow, what's going on here? The next minute that passion built up, and I was back into it again, and I just loved it, and I haven't stopped. So for the last 3 to 4 or 5 years, I'm out, I'm off, I never stop. I probably have 200,000 photographs sitting around at my place at the moment. You know, all with nice light too, I think. Majority of them. Nice, soft, beautiful light. But the passion come back, and I'm really, I'm just so pleased, I'm so happy, and I'm so excited the day, each day that comes, that I'm getting up and I'm out. And I take pictures in the car on the way through of anything. I'm searching all the time, and it's very exciting. I just carry it with me everywhere. I used to sleep with it under my pillow, but it used to hurt the back of my head a little bit, but I just love it. Photographers, your beauty! Yay! The excitement that I have each morning when I get up to photograph and as I go along the road is just one of the most beautiful beautiful things in the whole world, and be able to come back and actually download or upload, and you see all these photographs. Photography is one of the greatest occupations in the whole world, and I love it. So 3 cheers for the photographers. All aboard! Tickets please.
Grab your coat and get your hat. Leave your worry on the doorstep. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Can't you hear a pitter-pat? And that happy tune is your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street. I used to walk in the shade with those blues on parade.